Hello, everybody, and welcome to Decoding the WSL, the podcast dedicated to the stats and facts in the WSL. I'm your host, Sam Biccarinio, and this is your Game Week 21 review show, the second to last review show of the season. I've got two guests alongside me, one wearing a shirt that he's picked up from one of his travels recently, Jacob Bernstein, sporting a lovely Real Madrid number. You've got a name on the back as well, haven't you?
I do indeed. It's a Real Madrid shirt from a couple of years ago with my Rose on the back, so still keeping that Spurs theme. But yeah, doing very well, thank you.
Keeping the theme of your old Twitter name, that was something to do with my Rose, wasn't it? I can't remember what it was now off the top of my head.
That's good knowledge. It was Mighty Rose, like Mighty, before I rebranded. But yeah, that's a bit of knowledge.
That was it. I knew it was something Mighty Rose before you I love how you rebranded. Now it's just your name.
Yeah,
it was so wild. The other guest with us, one of our semi-regulars, and someone wearing a shirt that hopefully doesn't foreshadow some Champions League final action, is Laura Howard, because your shirt also has a story to it.
Yeah, it's the shirt that Arsenal wore in the 2006 final. So hopefully it's not the same result, but we have made it back again. And yeah, I'm enjoying supporting both teams and having back-to-back Champions League finals, even if it's not the same one.
Yeah, I mean, we can just say our club has been to back-to-back Champions League finals and just roll with that. And we don't need to say anything about the fact one was women's, one was men's. Same club mentality. You'll get there one day, Jacob. Right, before we get into the actual WSL action, I want to talk about WSL 2. We spoke about it a little bit in our last show, which was before the WSL 2 final day. If you didn't see it, basically Birmingham beat Charlton on the final day and Palace beat Portsmouth, meaning that Birmingham and Palace are guaranteed to be promoted into the WSL for next season. Obviously, the WSL is expanding, so we're getting extra teams. So this is a slightly different sort of promotion than we would normally see. So those two teams are up. Charlton, who lost to Birmingham, have finished third, and they will face Leicester on the 23rd of May at Charlton. And Laura, it was a fantastic end to, a season that I think a lot of people thought Charlton were almost going to walk the league, and yeah, it got a bit spicy at the end.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You're kind of sitting there in January going, oh my God, the most competitive league usually is actually sewn up and we can all relax. And then no, the WSL 2 never fails to deliver, and it truly did. I think poor Charlton to some extent, but also how on earth do you mess up that badly, being 9 points clear and then having a terrible March, a terrible April, and not even securing automatic promotion. Birmingham City, brilliant on the final day of the season. Liedhammer scoring a brace, and yeah, I think Charlton just didn't have enough oomph, and maybe we've seen that throughout the season in terms of they've been very reliant on their defence, and whilst they've kept an incredible number of clean sheets and Sophie Whitehouse has been brilliant, at the other end they haven't been scoring as much, and I think that's kind of come to haunt them when they've not been able to rely on that defence as much, and teams have maybe found a way to break them down, and they've not had that response going forward, and we saw that on the final day of the season. And Crystal Palace with that late run of form, really, really impressive. So yeah, exciting stuff. And of course Crystal Palace went 1-0 down in that game to start off with, so you're kind of thinking, are there more twists to this story? But they did go on to beat Portsmouth 6-1, as you said. So yeah, really exciting finish. And I do think obviously we'll come on to this, but that Charlton-Leicester game will be so interesting because I do worry for Leicester now.
Yeah, I think if you asked me this maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I'd have said that whoever finishes last in the WSL, probably Leicester at that point still, would be fine against whoever finished third in WSL 2. But yeah, it just seems that I know Leicester have been in I think a bad spell of form is one way to put it. I think there are probably a lot of expletives that Leicester fans would use to really describe it, but it's not been a good end to the season, never mind the start of it for them. And it's not been the first season that they've struggled for form as well. So yeah, it's not like it's a one-off and they can pick it up for one big game. It seems to be a systemic thing at the club, even before Passmore came in, before they've made a lot of transfers this season. So yeah, you do worry for them. And Charlton are going to kind of play like Leicester, try and sit back and hope that other teams come at them and then they can hit on the counter, which is going to be interesting when you've got both teams coming up in the same sort of tactical battle. But yeah, that's on the 23rd of May. So keep an eye out for that, because that would be I think, one of the most interesting games of the season. And obviously, it's just a winner takes all. Whoever loses plays in the WSL2, whoever wins plays in the WSL, for the first time, where there's going to be 14 teams in the league as well. So a lot to play for. Big game. I'm looking forward to it. Also, before we get into the pod, if you don't know any of the results, mute the pod for a bit, but I'm assuming basically everyone that listens to this has seen all the results, and they have seen Man City have won the WSL for the first time since 2016. Arsenal drew against Brighton last night as we record. It's currently Thursday the 7th, which means, Man City have won the WSL first time in 10 years. And we saw, Jacob, a lot of scenes on social media of how much the City players were celebrating. They were all watching it together, and they've really been, fantastic this season, haven't they? They're very much well-deserved.
Yeah, I think it was probably a question of when, not if. I know there was kind of a bit of contention, like if Arsenal win all of their games in hand, and they could potentially take it to the final day. But no, I think City have been worthy winners of the title. Their kind of early season form really clinching the title for them. They obviously lost on the opening day to Chelsea, but then they went on a 13-game win streak until they lost to Arsenal. And yeah, thoroughly deserved. I think as you said, they're amazing season on social media. I think they all gathered all the City players at the City training ground to watch it, and just watching them celebrate a worthy title afterwards was great to watch. I think my favorite stat of them all, or my favorite moment of content from the night, was Carolyn reacting to herself being the first Brazilian player to win the WSL. Like, she already knew that stat, and it was a really good video of it. But no, it obviously ends Chelsea's 6 consecutive titles in a row. And I think it's amazing that Andre Jägerlöz came in at the beginning of the season after a disappointing season from City last year. Jägerlöz becomes the 3rd manager to win the WSL in their debut campaign, after Laura Harvey for Arsenal in 2011 and Sonia Bonpastor last year. So no, it's a shame, I guess, for the WSL as a whole that it won't go to the final day. But yeah, great to see City win it.
Okay, let's get into the main part of the pod. We're looking back to, this would be the weekend before, as you're listening to this, because we're talking about the games that basically happened around 2nd and 3rd of May. Sorry, it's a bit of a while ago, but logistics and trying to get people to record at the right times and get it out, etc. It's been difficult when the WSL doesn't just play at a weekend. Why can't they make it simple? But we're going to start. Or actually, before we start, I'll give you a little roundup of what went on. Devil Wears Prada, more like Devil Wears Primark. United lucky to come out with a draw at home against Brighton on Saturday. 11 wins from 11 home games in the WSL City. They've certainly got the knack for that. Spurs were certainly spurred on by Signa Gopsit's performance this week as they brushed LCL aside 2-1 quite easily. Chelsea's top 3 place was claimed as James' aim won the game. Certainly no blame on Katie Keane's name. Rico Recchi hammered one home late on before assisting another as West Ham won 2-0 away at Villa. And then Andre's delight as Brighton drew against Arsenal on Wednesday night, which gave City the title. We're going to start with Saturday's game, one that we always do the games in chronological order. And to be honest, in this case, it's kind of just getting it out of the way, because Man United won, Brighton won, but not a lot happened in this game. Jelena Kankovic opened the scoring for Brighton in the first half, and then Leah Schüller came off the bench to equalise in the 94th minute. Now, there were no shots on target from either team between Kankovic's 39th minute goal and Leah Schüller's 94th minute goal, which shows you some of the attacking prowess and how exciting this game was. Fallon Torres-Joyce didn't actually make a save in the whole game, and Man United didn't commit a single foul, but Fallon Torres-Joyce still managed to get a yellow, I assume for time wasting, which means that she actually got more yellow cards than saves in this game, which isn't really a great stat. As we go into the final week, because of other results that have happened as well, United will now only get 3rd if they beat Chelsea on the final day and Arsenal lose their last 3 games. Obviously, the Villa-Arsenal game will have happened by the time you're listening to this, so we may know already if United are sort of certain to get 4th place, but it's looking more than likely anyway. And Laura, what do you think United are going to do in terms of their talent this summer? Because we've already seen rumours about Elizabeth Turlin leaving. They've got no Champions League next year, and it looks like the ownership aren't really as keen to invest realistically in the team, as much as some of the top 3 clubs and even teams like Spurs and LCL around them.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like we have this conversation like nearly every season. Obviously, it's changed here and there because they had Champions League last season, and so factors change. But there's always this recurring: are United going to invest more? Are they going to get rid of Mark Skinner? And these conversations keep happening. Are they going to be more ambitious? And I think maybe we saw a little bit of that in January, where you thought, okay, they are kicking on a little bit here. They're pushing their weight around as a name in the game a bit more, because we knew that their squad was a bit light, and it felt like they'd maybe rectified that in January, but that doesn't feel like it's really come to fruition. And that light squad has kind of paid its dues in the second half, and they've really struggled to consolidate a Champions League spot, as you said. So it's really hard to see where they go in terms of attracting talent. I do still feel like there is a pull of the name of Manchester United, regardless, and I think that's probably been established from their men's club. But in football, that name still holds a lot of weight for players, and I think they'll still promise that kind of, we're going to compete for Champions League football. We've seen players move there in the past when they haven't necessarily had that guarantee. We've seen Lea Schuler go there in January, and there was no guarantee of that football there, and that feels like a really big signing. But then you're looking at losing players like Elizabeth Turnland, and obviously they'll probably see that as, someone that's not necessarily necessary or isn't performing at the level they want to, but actually she has been a really strong performer, and she's been really critical to a lot of their performances. So it's going to be one of those stories that is really interesting to watch develop and see how that goes. But whether the kind of rumours mills and that continued inability to really assert themselves at that top level and stay in those Champions League spots will start to affect their kind of weight in transfer market going forward. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what their summer's like. We'll touch on Brighton a bit more later on, because we're going to cover the Brighton-Arsenal game from Wednesday night. So let's move on to Sunday's games. We're going to start with Man City 1, Liverpool 0, a game that Izzy was keeping us updated through the game within our little group chat because she was sort of covering it for Aerial Fantasy, and it sounded like Liverpool were generally the better team, especially in the first half, but it was Man City that obviously won the game. Rebecca Knack's header in the second half in injury time was the only difference between the two sides. It seemed that Yannick Falk had, I can't remember how many it was, quite a few saves throughout the game, but obviously when it came to the end of it, it was just City putting in way too many chances. They actually had the same amount of XG in this game, 1.39 for both teams, but the expected goals on target is really the difference. 2.22 for Man City versus 0.66 for Liverpool. So Man City should really have scored at least 2 goals in this game, given the chances they actually got on target, which I think goes some way to show how good Jennifer Falk was. Another stat I wanted to pull out from this, actually, which we don't often look at because there's not usually that much interesting around it, was the pass completion. Man City generally are pretty good at this. 79% is probably, if anything, a little bit under what they sometimes get. But 67% for Liverpool is really poor. That means 2 out of 3 passes were completed. And so 1 out of every 3 wasn't. So on average, they could only complete 2 passes before they lose the ball, which I think is really poor. For a team that's lower down the league, they've been on a decent run of form recently, compared to perhaps their first half of the season. They're going well under Gareth Taylor. They look like they're building something, but this might have been, maybe it's just because they're against City, but not a great little bit for them. But Laura, I mean, City got through in this one, but Liverpool defensively did a lot of work to make it hard for them. And with players like Denise O'Sullivan, Jennifer Falk that have come in this season, they're certainly looking a lot stronger.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's kind of really unlucky as well, because you look at the goal that they do concede and you feel like Falk could maybe have done more for that. And after such a strong performance, that's got to be pretty gutting for her, and not a reflection of how she influenced that game in the rest of the game. So yeah, it feels like it's on the up for Liverpool. Obviously, they've had a really good FA Cup run as well, which will be kind of exciting. And I think won't talk about it too much, but in terms of like the elements that Brighton have, and I think the stat you mentioned about pass completion is really interesting there, because Brighton press really high and force high turnovers quite often. So that will be really interesting to see how that one plays out. And both I think Brighton have strengthened their defence. So both two really strong defences that will come up against each other in that clash. And obviously we'll probably know the result by this time, so you'll all be going, yeah, you're either really wrong or really right, Laura. But I think, yeah, they have been on a better form and they are looking up. And I do think, another transfer market window under Gareth Taylor, and we can probably start to see hopefully more progression next season for them. It has been a bit up and down in the past in terms of the willingness to invest, but it felt like that was maybe a bit better in January. And I think some of those signings that like you say, they made have really made a difference and made an impact. So hopefully that will only continue to happen next season.
I think for City next season, it's looking like it's going to be obviously a big season for them because they've got, not only winning the league, but Jacob, they've now got Champions League football as well. But we're seeing a lot of rumours, and maybe there's a little bit more has come out by the time you're listening to this. But there's a lot of rumours at the moment that Bunny Shaw is going to be moving to Chelsea. That basically she wants to stay at City, but City can't match the offer, especially in terms of the length of contract that Chelsea are willing to give her. And yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm a bit surprised that City aren't just almost giving her a blank check to say, tell us what you want, tell us how much money you want, tell us how long a contract you want, and we'll okay it.
Yeah, I'm really surprised as well. I mean, the news obviously broke today. I saw it from, I think it was Tom Gary and Emma Sanders, who kind of were like reporting on it. And yeah, you'd expect that City would just kind of do anything they can to keep Bunny Shaw. I also saw something saying that Bunny Shaw wanted to stay. But so I think it's sad that there's been a mismatch in what City wanted and what Bunny Shaw wanted. And I think especially as they go from not having European football to having European football next year, where you have more fixtures, more demand on players. I think City have benefited a lot this season from only playing in the WSL and the domestic competitions, which was kind of having Europe last year was a hamper to them because they had so many injuries. And yeah, I think I'd be concerned where kind of to see how their transfer business goes if they do get rid of Shaw and then who they potentially bring in. But look, City have some incredible attacking players, so I don't think they're not nothing without Bunny Shaw. They've still got Viv Miedemar, Lauren Hemp. You've got Mary Fowler, who will start to come back in the side after her injury, Alba Fagino. So there's so much talent in that side. But when you lose a player like Bunny Shaw, who not only scores the volume of goals that she scores, but also the amount of chances that she has, she's always there in the moment, in the right place. I'd be concerned potentially going into next season.
Yeah, it'd be, well, I mean, what is City's loss will be Chelsea's gain if that is how it works out. Let's move on to Spurs 2, London City Lionesses 1. I was actually at this game. Normally, if one of us is there, it's Jacob, but it was actually me for once that was there. I did a episode of Decoding the Match. If you've not watched it yet, you can find it now on YouTube. I think you can watch it on Spotify as well, or yeah, you can listen to it anywhere, but it's a vlog, so if you're not watching it, it's going to come across a little bit weird. But no, it was really good to be there. We got to speak to Signe Gopset, we got to speak to Edda Mestre, got to speak to Martin Ho as well after the game, and obviously get my sort of analysis throughout. So if you haven't checked it out, go and have a watch. But I'll ruin it now, at least, and tell you what the score was. It was 2-1 to Spurs. Signe Gopset opened the scoring after dispossessing LCL at the back, and then Spurs went 2-0 up with an absolute worldie from Olivia Holt. Again, LCL unnecessarily giving the ball away for that goal, but still needed to be finished off fantastically by Spurs. In the second half, substitute Lana Kennedy got one back for London City Lionesses late on, but not enough to get them a point. And yeah, to be honest, I think London City Lionesses deserved to score in this game, and they probably would have scored more than one if it wasn't for the fact that Lisa Kopp was having one of the games of her life. It was really even in possession. Spurs had 2.1 XG to 1.3 for London City Lionesses, but the expected goals on target, I think, show quite a lot of how this game went. Spurs actually had less, about 1.6 to about 2.6 for LCL, but obviously they managed to score 2 goals from that, whereas LCL only managed to score 1 from 2.6 expected goals on target, which shows how good Lisa Kopp was in this game. Laura, Signe Gopset, when I spoke to her after the game, she said quite a lot about, I asked her about Martin Ho and sort of how he treats the players, because they looked to come out really well after his team talks. And she spoke about how much confidence basically they instill in them. And I guess you can really see that they're ready to go and take on their players when they play.
Yeah, 100%. I think that ability to find a manager that can connect with players is so vital in the league, and I think we've seen that so often in terms of just that confidence and how a manager can change that. Like Spurs is a prime example of Martin Ho coming in and completely changing that around this season. And I think as well, what we've seen with Spurs is that they might have had heavy defeats like North London derby, but they've come back and it doesn't feel like it's altered their form in a way that you've seen with maybe other teams where you hit a poor run. You see Liverpool at the start of the season and they're not finding that confidence, because there were games where you're like, Liverpool should have got a point there, or they could have got something out of that game, but they didn't have that confidence. But what's been really nice to see about Tottenham is that they've got this consistency now, and even when they come up against a side that's just on it that day potentially, that's not kind of faltered them. And I think it's so nice to be talking about these teams, talking about your Liverpools, talking about Spurs, and they're really starting to push up that table now. And obviously Liverpool start of the season maybe hampered that a bit, but definitely with Spurs in the WSL and seeing that. And I think obviously a manager's role is vital in that. And it's incredible that the WSL is now attracting so many talented managers to the league, and it feels like the place to be.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about how Spurs as a club try and operate and what they're trying to do with the women's team, that people like Martin Ho and Signa Gopsa and people like that are wanting, teams that are historically more successful than Spurs in the women's game will have been scouting these people as well, managers and players, and they're wanting to go to Spurs because there's obviously some sort of, vision there for the future. And Jacob, I suppose this is kind of a really good step towards that, because yes, you've got a new manager this season. Yes, you brought in quite a few good players. I think you've upgraded your squad over the season, and it's shown because a record points total. And yeah, I mean, statistically, this is the best that Spurs have ever been.
I think there's so much positivity to take out of this season. Obviously, this win against London City meant that A, we've got that records point total, and B, we've kind of cemented 5th place. And I didn't want to touch too much on the game because I think, Sam, you probably covered it in your decoding the match. But what I did want to touch on was on Tuesday, I went to Spurs Women did like an end of season event for season ticket holders. They do it every year. It's really, really good. They did like a panel firstly with Martin Ho and Andy Rogers, who is the Spurs Women managing director, and then they had a Q&A afterwards with Jess Naz, Claire Hunt and Amanda Nilden. And I wanted to touch on something that Martin Ho and Andy Rogers, a couple of things that they were saying, because there were some really interesting insights from it. I think naturally one of the questions that is asked by fans is whether there will be more games played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because we've seen obviously Arsenal now play all their games at the Emirates. Chelsea have announced they're playing all their games at Stamford Bridge for next season. And Andy Rogers did mention that there might be a potential increase in games over the coming season. But I thought it was interesting to compare Spurs' record at Brisbane Road compared to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. This season at Brisbane Road, Spurs have played 8, won 6, drawn 1, lost 1. So a really, really good record. That draw coming against Arsenal and the loss coming against City. At the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Spurs this season drew 1 and lost 2. They haven't won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium since May 2024, and have played 6 games there in the last 2 seasons, have drawn 1 and lost 5. The reasons for that, it might be because of familiarity. Those players might not be as familiar playing at the bigger stadiums, but not being used to the kind of bigger crowd. And it's almost the chicken or the egg. You need to play more games to have that experience, but you want to kind of naturally grow the fan base. I think the other thing that I thought was really interesting that Martin Ho referenced was Hammarby women, and he mentioned this kind of anecdote where 12 years ago there was this Hammarby fan called Ulf Stenback, and him and a group of friends basically set out with an aim to naturally grow the women's team, and they basically grew the fan base to basically bring thousands and thousands of fans to both home and away games, which is the product of community building and cooperation. And Martin Ho mentioned that kind of like the fans have the power now. We've got the connection with the club back, I guess. We have the power to build the fan base. And I think he mentioned something as in terms of potentially bringing in like fan groups to speak on behalf of like what it means to play for Spurs, and ideas and suggestions as to like how to improve things on the women's side. So no, it was a really, really positive event, obviously made more positive by the fact that our season's been so good. But yeah, I thought it was just worth sharing a couple of insights from it.
Yeah, that's really cool, because it's the sort of thing that us average folk that aren't Spurs season ticket holders would I mean, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't know the event happened, because it's not for sort of public promotion necessarily. That's not the point of it. It's just to give the fans, I guess, a bit of extra insight and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear. Let's move on to another London club that did well this weekend on Sunday. Leicester 1, Chelsea 3. Sam Kerr giving Chelsea the lead after 13 minutes before two, I think, truly magical finishes is the best way I can describe them, from Lauren James. Leicester's player of the season, Shannon O'Brien, got one back for half-time, but that was it for the game in terms of goals. There was a big talking point in the second half. Ash Neville should probably have had, well, I think almost certainly should have had a red card for a challenge on Alyssa Thompson that, if Thompson's leg was a bit more planted, could have been an incredibly serious injury, but got away with the yellow somehow. But 3-1 victory for Chelsea means they're guaranteed a top 3 finish. They're guaranteed to be in the Champions League next season. Leicester, probably unsurprisingly, were not the best team in this game. In fact, Shannon O'Brien's shot that Shannon O'Brien's goal, was the only shot on target for Leicester in this game, meaning that Livia Peng, who was standing in for Hannah Hampton, didn't make a single save. Chelsea had 24 shots in this game to Leicester's 5, 8 shots on target to Leicester's 1, 543 accurate passes compared to 166. Now, 543 is a decent amount. It's more than normal. About 300 or 400 is about normal, but 166 for Leicester is really, really low for any team. And I think another stat that really showed how this game went was that Chelsea made 9 clearances in this game, which is not loads, but not tiny amount. Leicester made 50, which is incredible. That's like more than double what you would normally see in a game. So an incredible amount of clearances, which I think shows Chelsea's dominance. And Jacob, I've mentioned that Lauren James scored 2 magical finishes, but she just had a great game all round, didn't she?
Yeah, it was quality. The second goal was just, I mean, both of them were amazing to watch. The right footed curler from outside the box, and then the almost like 2-step free kick. It was both moments of quality. But I wanted to highlight a couple of stats on Lauren James's season. She's had 5 goals and 3 assists from 10 starts in the WSL, and only 4 players this season have got over 1 goal or assist per 90, and Lauren James is one of them. And yeah, it's really impressive considering she started under half of the WSL games. Similarly, for Sam Kerr, she's had 6 goals and 2 assists for only 4 starts in the WSL. She's 4th for goals per 90. There's only one player who has over 1 goal per 90 in the league. Can either of you guess who it is?
More than 1 per 90?
Yeah.
Is it... Do they play for Man City?
No, they play for Arsenal.
Is it Smilla Holmberg?
No.
Oh, is it Stina Blackstenius?
Yeah, it's Stina Blackstenius. I thought you'd like that.
Of course it is.
You all love a bit of Stina Blackstenius promo.
The Swedes are high on.
So yeah, I thought... Yeah, I thought it was interesting because Chelsea rotated their team quite a bit. Vila Berman, Hannah Hampton, Shirka Nushkin, Alyssa Thompson and Kira Walsh are all on the bench, potentially ahead of the FA Cup semi-final against City this weekend. Or it may have been by the time you've listened to this. And I think, look, there's a real opportunity for Chelsea they've already secured the League Cup, the Subway League Cup. Obviously, it's a very tough game against City, but there's a chance to get into the FA Cup final and potentially win it. And look, for a poor season for Chelsea, there's a potential they could end up with the 2 domestic cups. So still a lot to play for them.
Yeah, I think Chelsea season is going to be, kind of defined by, after winning so much last season, I think those domestic cups are going to be so important for them. And yeah, by the time you're listening to this, you'll know whether they're in the cup final or not, the FA Cup, or if it's Man City. Alongside Brighton or Liverpool. But yeah, as we're sitting here, it's just sort of in the balance. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of hoping, whether it's Chelsea or Man City, that they're going to lose to whether it's Brighton or Liverpool, just because I kind of want the underdog to win an FA Cup. I don't want it to be City and Chelsea winning all the competitions. Give it to someone else. Give someone else a chance. Let's move on to Monday's game. Villa 0, West Ham 2. It wasn't a terrible game. I watched the highlights of this one, but I don't think it'll go down as a classic. It took until the 86th minute before West Ham broke the deadlock with Rico Becky scoring. She then assisted Serena Pubel 6 minutes later for a second West Ham goal, and that was what it was. They were actually West Ham's only 2 shots on target of the whole game, which again means that Villa's keeper did not make a save. Minus 1.1 goals prevented for Aston Villa, +1 for West Ham, with Walsh in goal, which I thought was really interesting. Because obviously King Ishemik's been the main keeper this season, but different keepers come in and put in a decent performance, prevented a goal in this game. And Jacob, I know you had a few stats about this game that you wanted to share.
I did, yeah. I just think Villa are a bit of a confusing side. Like, looking at the game specifically, they had 63% possession to 37%, 11 shots to 4, 1.47 xG to 0.96. So you can look at the game and think they were potentially unlucky not to win it or to get a draw, especially because Ueki's first goal was a quality one. But looking at their second half of the season overall, they've had some real difficulties. They've won 2, drawn 1 and lost 6. Looking at the form table then in the second half of the season, Villa are actually second bottom. Only Leicester have a worse record with 0 points because they've obviously lost all of their 10 in the second half of the season. Villa have also conceded the second most goals in the league with 43, also behind Leicester. And the reason that I say they're confusing is because some of their results suggest that they have such quality in their side. They beat United early in the season. They've got points off of Arsenal and City. They've got the second top goal scorer in the league with Kirsty Hansen. They've got the joint top assister with Lynn Vilms in the league. And yet, depending on results on the final day and their result against Arsenal, they could potentially finish quite low in the league, which I think is worrying. So yeah, confusing side, Villa, to be honest.
Yeah, they've got. It's one of those that I look at them on paper and I'm sort of thinking that they should be a top half side, and then you sort of look at some of the other teams in the WSL and you're like, oh yeah, there's quite a few teams that should be in the top half and they can't all fit. So yeah, Villa being in the bottom half, I think, kind of on merit when you look at it, is probably about fair. Let's move on to Brighton, Arsenal. Brighton, one of those teams that, to be honest, I look at and think they should probably be in the top half, and they are. This one was 1-1 on Wednesday night. Fuka Tsunoda, her deflected effort gave Brighton the lead just before half-time. Freedom Ornham probably should have had a penalty. I think it was a bit of a contentious one. But I think most people, especially some of the post-match punditry, they thought they should have had a penalty, but wasn't given. And a few minutes later, she equalised anyway, being played through by Alessia Russo, and then neither team could find the winner. So 1-1 was how it finished, and that was when we saw all the sort of celebrations from Man City. But talking about the game, I thought it wasn't the most, just watching it with the eye test, I thought it wasn't a very clinical game. And when I looked at the stats today, that was true, because both teams had less expected goals on target than expected goals, which means that basically they were getting into good positions, but they just weren't getting enough shots on target, enough high quality chances on target. So the sort of shooting quality just generally was poor. And when you've got 23 shots in the game, to only have 2 goals, normally you would sort of expect a little bit more than that, but that wasn't to be. But Laura, I mean, Brighton are finding their form at the moment, but Arsenal are kind of the other way, because they're now, well, there was a little bit of late hope that they could win the WSL. They've obviously been knocked out of the Champions League, and then that's basically it for this season. It's more about just sort of seeing the season out and I guess preparing for next.
Yeah, I think so. I think securing that second place finish it's got to be the aim now, and I guess perking up. I think it's tough when you come off probably what was the most emotionally and kind of physically draining match of the season for them, with the loss to Lyon away, to then try and kind of get yourselves together for that midweek. And I might have made the trip down to Crawley, but it probably wasn't worth it, and probably wasn't worth it for them to go either, by some of those performances. But yeah, a regular of the pod, Tom, texted me before, kind of being like, oh, how do you think this one will go? And I said, European lull incoming, basically. And I think that's exactly what played out. And I think what's worrying for Arsenal is it doesn't feel they have the squad depth at the moment to fully reinvigorate that team. I think by the second half, by those closing stages, I think the first half was really a really poor performance, and then the second half they just looked really tired as a team. You've even got kind of Smilla Holmberg, who's probably not used to playing, coming on in a Champions League semi-final and then playing a full 90 midweek and then doing that again. And I think she looks so good in that first half, even though the team's performance wasn't great. She's got that burst of pace. But even then, you're kind of looking at the second half, and she just wasn't willing to go around the players like she was in the first half because she didn't have that turn of pace. And it just felt like that was maybe symptomatic of the whole Arsenal team. And I think with the way that the scheduling has been done, it's going to be really tough to kind of turn that around now. And especially, another away fixture up at Villa Park. And really interesting kind of what Jacob was saying, because you look at Villa and you think, oh, they just lost to West Ham, but then equally, like they are a confusing team because they have taken points off top teams. So that's by no means a kind of given that they win there. So I think it'll be really interesting. Obviously, that will have been played, you'll know, but I think it will be a kind of a tough finish to the season for Arsenal, and it's got to all focus on that second place and kind of rejuvenating now. But Brighton looking great, which I'm sure we'll come on to.
Yeah, Jacob, I was going to ask you about Brighton because they've hit a bit of form towards the end of the season, I guess. Well, it's kind of hard to talk about because we don't know what the FA Cup result was, but I know from Liverpool fans that I've heard they're probably still better than wanting to face Chelsea or City, but they're worried about facing Brighton because they seem to have just hit form at the sort of the worst time for Liverpool. But Brighton more generally, obviously they've suffered a lot this season with the Vidicic family, but and they've obviously had injuries to major players, like Michel Adjumang was quite a major player for them. And they're still coming through strong and finishing the season, and it looks like they're going to be in the top half.
Yeah, and it's not just them hitting form, but it's them hitting form against big teams as well, and that's what makes a big difference. Like it goes all the way back, I think, to they beat Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final, in the FA Cup quarter-final, which was a huge win and pretty unexpected, to be honest. And they beat City in the WSL a few weeks ago in that 3-2 thriller, and have got recent draws against United and Arsenal. So I think hopefully Brighton should be able to cement and finish sixth in the WSL, which I think would be impressive. They're unbeaten in their last 4 WSL matches. They've obviously got the FA Cup semi-final this weekend, and I think that if they can get a kind of top half finish in an FA Cup final, that would be a really successful season from them. And we're seeing some kind of different players step up at the beginning of the season. You might have thought that players like Michel Adjumang or players like Rosa Kafaji or Fran Kirby might be their stars, but Kiko Saika's been on good form, and also Madison Haley's been on fantastic form, especially in this recent run. And you also saw players like Jelena Kankovic kind of step up as well. So look, lots of positivity from Brighton, and Spurs are obviously facing Brighton away in the last game of the season. I'll be at that, so I think that will be a great matchup between two really good sides.
I think they're going to be a good force for years to come as well. It seems like they're really, they're building a stadium. You can't really invest too much more than that. Showed some good faith towards your women's side. That's the review, but let's move on to aerial fantasy before we finish up today. Obviously, this is game week 21 so far. We've still got the Villa Arsenal, and then Arsenal Everton games still to go. But in terms of how the panel did, the Decoding League generally, let's start with our little mini league. The little mini league, we've got me, Jacob, Tom, and Izzy. Tom is now top of the league. It's not been a good week for Jacob. He's dropped down to third below me, and Izzy is down in fourth. Jacob, you might still have a great week because you've captained Alessia Russo, and with 2 games left to go, that could be a lot of points.
Yeah, I've not only captained her, I've triple captained her, but I think my biggest worry in the last couple of weeks is I've just not been sure on team selection. I had a couple of Chelsea players in this week. I had Hannah Hampton and Alyssa Thompson, who both didn't start. I also have Villa Berman, but she's on my bench and she didn't start. So I've been at risk of rotation. And my 3 Arsenal players with 2 games to go for Arsenal in this game week are Russo, Calente, Wubben-Moy. I'm slightly concerned on Wubben-Moy's minutes with players like Williamson, Fox, and McKay being rested against Brighton, and obviously Caldente didn't start either. So there is potential for me to kind of get up the league, but I'm just slightly concerned about minutes of Arsenal players.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think we've got to keep an eye on Izzy as well, because she's 75 points so far this week. She's closing the gap. She's had a good last few weeks. First place in our Decoding the WSL league overall at the moment is still Stanley's team Villanova, mainly because they are still the number one team in the world. Very well done, Stan. 68 points so far this game week. The best team in game week 21. I'm going to give a little shout out here to Izzy, because I thought she was going to be the top scorer in the whole league. We've got just over 500 people in this league, but she was actually second this week in the end, because Andrew Savage's team, A Savage City, 168th in the Decoding the WSL league, got 3 points more than Izzy, 78 points. You would assume that's because you've got some Arsenal players in there. You know, they've got extra games this week, but no. A captain for Lauren James, bench boost played, and then other high scorers like 15 for Rebecca Knack, 6 for Kasparov, 6 for Sam Kerr, 6 for Chiamaka Nnadozie. So yeah, 78 points and counting, because we've still got a couple of games to go. But yeah, thank you, listener or viewer, for watching, listening, wherever you are. That is us for today, your penultimate review show of the season. Obviously, if you do enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe to the Decoding the WSL YouTube channel, give the video a like, all that kind of good stuff, because it doesn't take a lot of effort from you, helps us out a lot, grow the show. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers in the summer. So that's sort of our little target we set ourselves. I think we're about 430 now, something like that. Also follow the Decoding the WSL Instagram and TikTok accounts, because yeah, we're posting a bit more on there as well. But other than that, that's all for us today. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, viewer. And we'll speak to you at the next one.